Something I've been thinking about these days is seafood, and particularly like crustaceans and stuff, lobsters, crabs. I think they fall into that category.
Hmm.
I don't understand how people eat that stuff. I don't
Really?
get it because it looks like a giant sea bug to me. And I was watching a video of baby lobsters. They literally look like cockroaches, but it's like a delicacy. And it made me think, like, man, imagine like if in Bikini Bottom they were eating cockroaches as a delicacy. Like, oh, this is from the earth. And then, Krusty Krab is serving up some gourmet cockroach. I feel like that's what it is for us. It's like we go into the oceans, we get the lobsters and the crabs, and we're like, yeah, gourmet food. I don't know. It's just disgusting to me personally. But that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately.
Really? Hey man, you are one of the philosophers of our time. That's honestly, for one, I hear that a lot in like pop culture. People will be talking about, how do people eat shellfish? When you think about it, they're just bugs, kind of what you alluded to. And I'm not gonna lie, you saying that, I just had something that came into my mind, if that's okay. It's
Do it.
about, it's kind of pertaining to this. The one thing that I've really been thinking about, I'm sure you've heard of the concept of pretty privilege and maybe the halo effect in psychology. I'm sure you're a very studied man, real research guy. You've stumbled across it, but I think the same thing is applicable to what you just said when it comes to shellfish, lobsters, crustaceans. Uh, because the concept, right, like you said, is like they're cockroaches, they're like nasty critters, but we hold it in such high reverence and it's presented as a delicacy, but simply because maybe they have more vibrant colors, or it's like bright red, it's orange, it's like, wow, it's pleasing to me. But you think of a cockroach, it's brown or black or something, and or whatever, and you're just like, ugh, right? That's nasty. But the concept, it's like the parallels are all there, and it just makes me think that the halo effect and pretty privilege goes beyond just surface level humans and us treating someone who looks better, just with more respect or high regard. It's like even animals and bugs, right? Because you think of like a possum is seen as a nasty rodent, right? Rodents are usually classified as dirty, disease carrying, but the thing is, they don't carry any diseases or anything, and they're so good for the environment. Yet people think that they immediately have this connotation of ugh. And
It's
so
funny you say that, man. My mom, we were just walking in the park one day and she sees a squirrel and she's like, look at how lovely the squirrel looks. You never think like it's dirty, but it's basically a rat with a furry tail.
yeah,
Rats
yeah.
only have like the long, slender one. And I was like, yeah, she's so right. So what you're saying right there, pretty privilege,
Dude,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's real. And I'm sorry, I know I could talk about this forever, but just one last thing, right? You talk about rats and mice. They're always seen as test subjects because of like whatever their genealogy, genetic makeup is similar, or whatever it may be. And people don't really bat an eye in terms of ethics and why are we experimenting? They still have pain thresholds. They can still feel all these things, but ew, they're dirty. So we're gonna use this vaccine and see how this rat responds to it. And it makes me sad. I read this poem about like mice and their perspective and point of view, and how they wish in another life to be held in the same. I'm not even kidding, man. I forgot who wrote it,
Damn,
but
son.
I know it's really popular thing, and I'm not kidding. It made me really sad. It's like,
Wow.
and I have it like a part of it in my Twitter bio now because of how much it, I guess, resonated with me. It was like the rat's or mice final word was "Let death be kinder than man," and and yeah, like I'm not kidding, dude. It's like we all don't really care. If I saw like a cat or a domesticated animal being subjected to something immediately, which is fair. It's like it makes me sad. It should, but of a rat, you're just like, oh, right, that's what they're primed for. At least they're being useful. They're gonna help, expand humanity. But it's just like, no, dude, it's if the optics were a little different, then we wouldn't think of that. So I don't know. You opened with that crustacean thing and you've opened Pandora's box. I'm like thinking about all these things now. I might need to rewatch Zootopia or something. Okay, but anyways, I'll stop right there.
No, I love that. Dude, you mentioned philosophy. Nietzsche talks about this. He had this idea where morality has morality has aesthetics to it. So if a person kills a cockroach, they're a hero, but
Uh,
they're a villain if they kill a butterfly. It's like, yeah, that's so true. That is so
yeah,
true,
yeah,
man. But I like how you brought that up, bro. That was a cool little twist into something. Pretty privilege. What is your experience with that in real life? What have you seen? What have you experienced?
man. Um, Honestly, so as I mentioned, the halo effect, that's like the scientific psychological term where we sort of give more, there's more immunity given to people who meet this, I guess, objective or conventional beauty standard, right? Uh, and what I mean by that, I mean we're seeing it right now with the United Healthcare guy, Luigi Mangione, which, you know, I'm behind him, I'm not gonna lie, but I do think about how much people, I'm not saying people wouldn't still be behind him if he didn't meet this conventional beauty standard, but it's definitely like accentuated or kind of heightened uh the way he's seen in terms of people giving him empathy and all these other things, which he does deserve. I empathize with the guy so much, and that's another subject. But I'm just saying it's even in my personal life, because you mentioned in my personal life, I've seen it with friends, right, who I'm not friends with anymore, but there could be someone in a group, right, in a group dynamic, and there's somebody who meets these standards, right? And I'm not joking. It sounds so absurd, extreme, like what is this guy talking about? But if you really think about it, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this in some way, shape, or form. Think about if you've been in a group dynamic or even in a school setting, whatever, and there's somebody who fits these, this criteria of, hey, he demands respect, man. He just looks like somebody who people are going to listen to. Maybe he's handsome, he's tall. He meets these sort of societal like why do you think we have terms like Napoleon syndrome or whatever, right? It's a real thing. I feel like they're all derivatives of pretty privilege halo effect where people make fun of people who have Napoleon syndrome. Like, come on, man. Like, why do you have this inferiority complex? Like, you gotta wear it with your chest. And I agree, but there's a reason. There's always like a cause for something. There's always something that it stimulates or leads to, right? There's never just in an equation, oh, you just have the output. You always have something that led to people getting to where they are. And in my own life, I've just seen people. I'm sorry, I know I've been talking so much on this.
No,
I
please
apologize,
keep going. Please keep
but
going.
uh, in my own life, and I was talking about friendships, there will be people who I'm not joking, and I've seen like they meet these certain criterias, they're good looking, whatever it is, and they can do some of the very, very heinous stuff, right? I'm not trying to use that word lightly, but they can be very manipulative, narcissistic, whatever, sociopathic. And it seems like because they meet this standard or because there's something to them, I don't know what it is, people can give them so many passes until it's like, okay, now maybe we should distance ourselves, or even if they reach this extreme standard or level, people are still willing to absolve them of whatever they've done. And that's just something that's always in my mind. I You can observe it 24/7. I mean, I'm just like, man, I feel like if so and so did this, or if I did this, would I be given the same leeway? Would I be given the same I guess immunity, and it sounds very superficial and stupid or whatever, but it's a very real thing, even if it's subconscious, right? I'm not saying people deliberately are trying to just absolve these people because of so and so. It's just a societal thing that over time, when we set the standard of so and so is like this, so and so is like that, we have more empathy. We can give them more of this. And it makes me go crazy because I'm like, dude, someone can do something that's objectively way, way, way less worse than what this attractive person did. Yet that person was thrown to the wolves. That person is just completely vilified and that's it, right? It's just like, oh, because you have this kind of preconceived notion this person looks like that, so oh yeah, whatever, I was already skeptical. I'm sure you hear people are like, man, you're so different, like when I saw you I didn't expect you to be like this, right? It's just like, is that a compliment or is that, I don't know. That's sort of how I see it. I just feel like I see too many people given passes for really messed up stuff simply because they meet this
They look
standard.
good. It's so fascinating you're mentioning this because as I was leaving the masjid from Jumma yesterday,
Yeah.
I was thinking about this, and I was thinking it just came to me randomly. I'm like, I am more fascinated with villains that are good looking than I am with villains that aren't good looking because I feel like we don't have a whole lot of villains portrayed in the guise of good looking figures or
Oh
people.
yeah.
Yeah, that's so random, but yeah, I was thinking about that.
Absolutely, dude.
It's a thing, right? Like people assume that if something is beautiful, it's true or it's good. And then also the inverse, like, oh, if it's good, if it's true, it must be beautiful. But that's not always true. Not to say it's never true, but it's not always true.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, why do you think we have these sort of sayings, don't judge a book by its cover? I feel like it all, again, we talk about derivatives and something being a cause. I feel like they're all interconnected. There's a correlation there. But that's sort of my, I guess, little tidbit rant.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned that, man. That was cool. And I liked another thing you mentioned. Of course, you don't have to go into details, but you said, you were friends with certain people and now you're not friends with them.
Yeah.
That's another thing I've been thinking about lately because a lot of times I hear people talk about romantic heartbreaks, but what I don't personally hear about more is the sort of heartbreak you can get when you lose a good friend. That is really painful. I mean, it's something that I feel like I've kind of been experiencing, and I feel like I mourn. I mourn that friendship, like it's gone, especially if it was someone that was really close to you. And it's it's just one of those feelings that it shakes up your mind. You don't know how to wrap your head around it, so to speak. How do you deal with good friends leaving your life?
Man. I like how you segued into that because I guess you could see it like that is something that's been very present in my life, or so to speak, in the last couple of years, especially this year. And I don't mind, of course, opening up. Uh, yeah, I've spoken about this a lot, with like one of my siblings, and even a couple of my cousins. It hits different because again, obviously we only associate heartbreak, like you said, with romanticism or romantic partners, but thinking about a friend who you've known longer than someone you're in a romantic relationship with. This could be a childhood friend, right? It's like um we simply like weren't compatible, and after all these years, like how could it lead to this? I would confide in this person. I This person has seen me at my worst, at my lowest. This person knows what I've experienced and what I've dealt with, and how this person's like a crutch, or so obviously like I'm not, that's unhealthy. I'm not saying like that per your friends, again, you can also become toxic, or it can get unhealthy if your friend is your everything. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying to like a certain extent, with these intimate relationships, there is this just natural level of, hey, like I can go to this person for so and so, and vice versa. I'm always there for them. And we've never had any issues, or right, or anything major. Obviously, conflict is normal and sometimes it can be healthy, but at the end of the day, if you have proper conflict management skills, whatever, it's going to be resolved and that person will always be there. And all of a sudden it seems like, whoa, like this person isn't there anymore. And this person was so active in my life from junior high to high school to college. I'm always sharing the most mundane things with them. And it doesn't always have to be some very philosophical, complex thing. It's just I enjoy sharing that I got a burger from this place with so and so
Yeah.
because we have that shared thing, and it's like a routine. Because yeah, like you can be dating somebody for a year or two and breaking up with them. Obviously, it hurts, and you're going to feel that on a very crazy level. I get it, but with a friend, it's just like, I don't know, man. We grew up, we've gone through all of these obstacles, we've learned from each other. This person was there when I broke up in a romantic relation, right? And it's just like now that person isn't there. It was a constant in my life, and it's you feel like a part of yourself missing, right? And that's something that's really been on my mind a lot recently. I think I've talked to you about, I think our last podcast, we talked about loneliness and college, or not having a conventional college experience, if I recall correctly. And this sort of like feeds off of that, because I've had these very close friends who I'm not friends with anymore. And I I always told myself, because I didn't have a conventional college experience and I didn't get to meet all these new people or develop these relationships, I'm okay with that, because the friends that I've made throughout my childhood and high school, whatever, they are always there for me. They will always be there. If I'm dealing with something, I know they're always there. So I'm not too hell bent, because a lot of people see college or entering like a professional workforce like, okay, I'm ready to meet new people, because a lot of people unfortunately have a hard time making friends in high school or whatever, that it's just like I need a clean slate, and then they make these friends in college. For me, I
I need a
always saw
clean
it,
slate. I like how you mentioned that. Yeah.
yeah. And for me, I was like, obviously I'm excited to meet new people, yada yada. And I'm sorry, I'm not gonna keep harping on this, but I I was like, if I don't, or because COVID or whatever ruined that college conventionalism, I have all these people. They already know everything about me. I don't have to, I can skip the small talk. I can skip whatever. I have this person. And then when that person's just not there anymore, you're not talking to them. You feel you get betrayed, whatever. It's just a whole nother level, because I feel like this person, I would share everything with them. They knew everything. They knew they knew about like the issues or struggles I've had with family or whatever, and how much I valued my close friends, and you know what I mean? And just to see that go away, and it feels like that person betrayed you and completely, I don't know, just destroyed everything you had, and it feels like it's nothing to them. I think that hurts the most. because it's like you can see, me pleading or anyone pleading and trying to water a dead plant or whatever it may be. And it just seems like that person doesn't have any empathy. And then it makes you think, was our friendship ever really the same? Did they see their friendship the same way I did all these years? Did I make that mistake? And that's sort of, I guess, how my sentiments on that, or how I feel, if that makes sense.
It was beautiful what you said.
Thank you.
Have you ever been the guy on the other end that you just up and vanished from someone's life? And to you, it was maybe not as big of a thing. Because I feel like as individuals, because I can recall one time in my life where I did have a really good friend
Mhm.
and there was no bad blood, but I did feel like one of the facts of life is every friendship has an expiration date. And that doesn't have to be bad blood. It could just be somebody dies. And that's happened to me. Like I had a friend that died.
I'm
But
sorry.
okay, no, crazy story, dude. The guy became Muslim and his family didn't know and they cremated him. And then there was no janaza. So I told Muhammad Rafat, he got the MSA to do an announcement where we all prayed janaza for him in the library basement. It was
What?
wild. Like I think it was like 100 plus people that came that day.
When was
I
this?
think this was spring 2023, like January, I think, or something like that.
Even that long ago.
Crazy story. Yeah, crazy story.
Have mercy on him. Man, I didn't hear about this at all. Oh my.
Yeah, yeah. He was a good friend of mine, and yeah, he took shahada at the UH dawah table. How wild is that? Insane, insane story. But the
Definitely
thing I
got.
wanted to get back to was sometimes I feel like it's healthy or necessary for you to cut off some people. Again, not because there's bad blood, so to speak, but you've moved on. You've grown in a different direction. Um, but at the same time, I feel for the other person who it's like, damn, you up and vanished, man. We had such a good relationship before. It's a it's a paradox.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, because you asked me, right, have I ever been on the other end? That's a good question. Uh, I don't know. I guess obviously I'm not gonna say I'm a perfect person, far from that. I would like to say off the top of my head, I have never ever deliberately, or at least thought of like, oh, so and so, they were just someone to pass the time and they were just an acquaintance, whatever, and I'm just simply gonna stop messaging them. That's never been my thing. I've truly value all my relationships, and so perhaps there have been sort of, I guess, remnants of that kind of fit that mold of what you're describing. But I would like to say it was more so mutual. It was never like, oh yeah, like I have no need, or it's like a transactional thing, because I'm not gonna just become friends with everyone or see everyone as a friend. I have decent amount of acquaintances, but I think friendship is another stepping stone, another level, and I would like to do my best in trying to preserve those. Maybe there definitely has been some that have fallen off like that simply because I kind of went AWOL, not to that person, but just in general. And it was sort of hard to rekindle. I don't know, maybe there's some that I need to rekindle and I haven't really thought about it. But in some ways, yeah. But I can at least say and like go to sleep knowing that I never ever maliciously would, ended something, or deliberately just try to cut something off no matter what, and in a always in a natural way. And that's something else, right? Even for some people that weren't super close but were friends and people I'd known for a while, within the last year or so, I noticed that it's like a hive mind, and they sort of just believed or bought into what so and so may have been saying about me, and that person knows that I never ever did anything wrong to them. And again, I wouldn't have mind if our relationship naturally kind of, you grow up, things happen, you can't give everyone time, unfortunately. But these sort of friendships ended because of some hearsay, some very childlike, immature sort of things that had me shocked, that thinking I could never see that person sort of falling into that and believing something like that, right? And I think that's what made these things much harder to come to terms with. Because, yeah, I get the natural weeding out and it happens, waning out. But when something is uh, salvageable, or it never ever had to go there, and it simply is going there because so and so is uncomfortable with, you know, condemning someone who might be wrong, or a mutual that's wrong, right? Something very petty, weird dynamics, and they sort of just buy into something like that. I think that's what hurts, because I'm like, I was never like that. I always did my best to do right by you, and even if I did something, you could have easily came to me and approached me, because I truly do. Value my relationships, and I never ever want to hurt anybody or do anything like that, because I know what it's like. We've had a whole segment on being lonely and being hurt, and I truly empathize. So I don't ever want anyone to feel like that, especially the few people that I hold very close to me, right? So that's sort of why it hurts so much. And I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question properly,
No,
or
I loved what you said, really, and I especially liked how you used the word salvageable. That's so powerful, man. Because if it's a good friendship and things go the way they go, usually there's something salvageable, and it makes me think miscommunication is such a monster.
oh
It
yeah.
really is. I was at a Pillars event a couple nights ago, and it was Hussein Kamani, and he had this great ending to his segment that he talked about the relationship between Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anh, and Khalid ibn Walid radiallahu anh. And he talked about how, historically there were some tensions, so to speak. Whoever's interested, more details are out there to learn. But the most beautiful thing he talked about was Khalid ibn Walid on his deathbed. He cried and stuff, but he was like, whatever happened between me and Umar radiallahu anh, he was right. Like, we were boys, so to speak. Like, it's all good. And then, he passes away. And when Umar radiallahu anh, when he hears about this, he cries a lot too. And he's like, by Allah, I love that man. And people said that maybe I was mean to him or harsh to him or this and that, but that wasn't how I saw it. I did my best to be just to him, and I loved that man. And that story, especially the way that Hussein Kamani talked about it, it really moved me, because it's like, man, these friendships, these relationships, because they were cousins too, right? Since they were kids. We don't know how things end, but we always, what that story exemplified to me was, if you think the best about the other person, that friendship still exists, even if it's not apparent. They thought the best about each other.
Man, I actually haven't heard that before. That is beautiful. And I think that is not I think I know that is something that's very present in my mind too, of maybe simply reaching out, or trying to say something could completely just destroy and absolve all these sort of things. I know, I get it. It's like you may think or perceive something in one way, but that person doesn't see it like that at all. For me,
It's like
I
that Key and Peele skit, with like the text
yeah,
communication, the
yeah,
texting. Yeah, but please
yeah,
continue.
yeah, no. I don't know. I guess there is room for that, and that's what scares me too. I I don't ever want to leave this earth or world or dunya, sorry, for not without when there was something there that left such a hole in my heart that could have been, mustered and fixed. And all it takes is a simple message. But I don't know. For me, I'm always at like a qualms. Like it's so polarizing. For me, I feel like these relationships that I had to really get up and leave, it was something that sort of over time I always overlooked these negative components or these negative dynamics simply because I always want to things to be good. I don't know if this just goes back to some childhood trauma or something, but I never want uh things to be bad. I'm always trying to, and I get it, things when there is stuff that's uncomfortable or those things are normal and you shouldn't avoid that. I really have a pet peeve of people who are neutral about everything or whatever it may be, or people pleasing. But uh these are sort of things that it's just like it should go without explaining. I think that's what hurts me the most. I'm not trying to be stubborn or not reach out to this person. And if someone watches this who was once a friend or whatever, and if I did wrong by them, I apologize and I would love to rekindle. But uh in this case, with these very close, intimate relationships, it was something that I feel I'd like to say I tried everything, and even if I guess I didn't, why would I have to go to these extreme lengths to show you that, oh, I'm not a bad person or I'm not what so and so might be saying, right? It's just something like, how have we been friends all these years? We've never had an issue, but you immediately fall for whatever it may be, and just like that, you were able to throw so much dirt on my name and put me through all of these things that caused me so much anxiety and pain and something that still bothers me to this day, right? And maybe, and I don't know, maybe people do need to be told or explained, and that's something I don't get. And I need to have more patience, maybe, perhaps. But for these, I feel like they're just things that would go without saying, right? And I don't want to be petty. I never try to be petty. I'm always willing to look the other way and repair things. And this was just something that it just went beyond what I could ever believe. And I simply had to get up and walk away. And even though it hurts and it still pains me, and the door is open, perhaps these people do come to me one day, and I would love that to have a discussion. But they saw my like pleas and my pain, and they could still just see it as, oh, what is this person so emotional about? That's when I had to really get up and I guess leave these relationships, if that makes sense.
Yeah. My neighbors had sent us a poem card for the holidays. Very nice of them. It was a Ralph Waldo Emerson poem, and I don't remember the whole thing, but the idea is living a good life. And there's a piece of the poem right in the middle that just hits me so hard. And it says, to suffer the betrayal of false friends. And it goes on and it continues to list things about what it means to live a good life. And just that part really hits me. To suffer the betrayal of false friends. That's life. Just something we got to deal with.
Absolutely. It is, and it sucks. For me, I feel like it happens more than it should. No, I'm just kidding. But eh, in all seriousness, it is. And I know even Islamically or whatever, these are things that are written in scripture, and a lot of philosophers and scholars have gone in great detail on the concept of betrayal and keeping your enemies close, but this yada yada. I know that's just a very constant in our life, but I don't know. I it's just when it happens to you, right, it just feels like, man, like why? Right? It's just like why me? Like I get it, these things happen,
Yeah.
but that's I don't know, I guess you roll with the punches and with time is the best healer. You learn to see what kind of friends you deserve and the kind of people you need and what to look out for. And I guess that's the only way I can see it. And sorry,
No, no, keep going. Don't apologize. I
my
love to hear what you got to
thoughts
say. Go for it.
my thoughts haven't been coherent and what have you, but one thing that I'm always thinking about, and I don't know if you ever thought about this, is that I really feel these personal relationships, these friendships, these whatever that go sour, or it seems like a lot of people in your life who you've had to cut off who are like, man, why are they so selfish? Why are they going about things this way? Do they not have any sort of empathy? Do they not have any sort of whatever? And I think it's like a microcosm of society as a whole. I don't think that's some galaxy brain revelation, but what I'm trying to say is that I don't know, take like our government, for example, the US government, and think about how devoid of empathy they are when it comes to not just their own constituents and inhabitants, but just people beyond, right? This is just the US empire is known for a lot of ghastly, horrible things that we could never begin to comprehend. And the US is still put in this light and sees themselves as the saviors, as the, benefactors, the ones who bring peace and justice and order to this world that's uncivilized and yada yada. And the US, but the reality is the US is very selfish. Our government officials, those who represent us, are all 95% of them are careerists, only looking out for themselves, very deranged, very whatever. And I think when I say microcosm or the irony in this all is that people in my life who I'm not friends with anymore or whatever it may be, these same people talk about how they don't care about politics, they don't care about the government, they don't care about these things because they need to look out for themselves, right? Whatever it is, if they're nihilists, whatever it may be, they're like, why should I care, right? I'm dealing with such and such, and I don't care about this. I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to do this. And the irony is that or in the microcosm is that they basically have the same sort of viewpoints and behavior as the government, as these bigger things, right? If that makes sense. If you need more clarification, I can give it. But it's just like our society is so individualistic. It's so only about ourselves. We have no empathy. We have no community. And it's hurting us. It's destroying our society from within. And I think it's all simply a reflection of our government and these things on a grander scale. The US doesn't care about who they kill. The US doesn't care about manipulating people, of kicking people to the curb, putting people in debt. Why should we care, right? We're just trying to do what we think is best for us. And that's what like our presidential candidates are like, right? And then I just see it, I observe it in with people in my own life. And maybe you can draw that parallel and that connection. I just feel like no matter how much someone might claim they don't care about politics, government, yada yada, they still in some way, shape, or form are a reflection or a microcosm of the things they don't care about. And I think that's just
Yeah.
something I've been thinking about a lot,
They
if that
become the monsters they ignore. You're right. And actually, that's why you and me have a shared interest in the show The Boys. The Boys is quite
yeah.
literally like it's a mirror to America. I mean, it's a reflection, and that's what really attracted me to that show. Is it I mean, it's satire, but it's horrifically true in so many different ways. And I've tried to show it to some people that I think would vibe with it, but they're like, "Nah, superheroes aren't for me." But I'm like, "No, it's beyond the superheroes. Like there's so much symbolism in it, and it's like Homelander. He's like an American prophet. He is like a culmination of all these things, good and bad. And yeah, I like what you said there, man. These
Thank you.
people that don't care, they kind of are the same things that they don't care about.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, it's just all in some way, shape, or like I don't know, all roads lead to Rome or something, right? Like I was trying to think of some quote or something that exemplifies that, but it really just feels that way, no matter how people see it, no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, yada yada. Ultimately, uh, deliberate or not, subconsciously you are exemplifying. And I think that's kind of what the government, I don't know, not to be some deep state conspirator, woke brain guy. So I apologize to anyone, but
But isn't it interesting? I've been thinking
yeah,
about this a lot more recently, especially post pandemic. Isn't it interesting? Like 10 years ago, you could have like 10 conspiracy theories and people would be like, that's crazy. Like, I don't
yeah,
believe any of that. And now in today's day and age, like, hey, maybe like 7 or 8 of those are true or like
yeah,
believable, plausible. And people wouldn't necessarily call you crazy for thinking that. Crazy, huh?
yeah. No, no, no. You hit the nail on the head. That's something else where a lot of these conspiracies are sort of being vindicated and people are like, whoa, like this there's actually something that's making sense. It's not
Yeah.
all yeah,
Like
it that
I was in Dallas like about a month ago, and for some reason I was just like passively thinking, "Oh yeah, like maybe I should go check out where JFK got shot." I didn't care to. I went back home to Houston, but JFK kept popping up in my vicinity, and I always thought like, why do people still talk about his assassination? Like, who cares? This happened like so long ago. Like he's dead. Like whatever, you know. It was a
yeah.
tragedy, of course, but
uh,
it's history. There's so many things about that we still don't know. And like the more you read into it, you're like, damn, this is actually a really crazy event that does deserve to still be talked about. Like there's just a lot of things that we don't know.
oh yeah. No, for sure. That's another thing, I guess, with time and age, you begin to open because you're reading these about this in the textbooks, whatever. It's like, yeah, he was shot and so on and so forth, and such is life. A lot of great figures have been assassinated. Like, why should we care? But it's it's again, uh, it's a domino effect. There's always something needs to kind of what I said earlier. There always needs to be something that is the reason whatever is presenting today, there's a cause. And JFK,
Yes.
yeah, was known
Yeah,
for
yeah. Like that was the thing I was thinking about in particular. Like, especially in America, so much of our reality is either distracted or it's sedated. Like our reality really changed after that assassination. Like what is real? There's so much that we don't know, and that's why I guess it's different from Abraham Lincoln's assassination. Like that's history, right? Okay, John Wilkes Booth that killed him. Like that's it, whatever. But JFK is like, wait, this literally changed the reality or how we perceive the reality of our nation since.
yeah, yeah, no, because I've been reading a lot and I'm sure you hear about it. JFK and his sentiments regarding Israel and how he viewed certain programs or whatever it was. JFK was seen as this, I don't know, I guess people were scared at the time of some socialist figure or whatever it may be. And even though I know he wasn't a socialist, but all these things they tie back to that. It's like, no, it wasn't just a unfortunate president was killed and so on. Like Abraham Lincoln, yeah, I don't think there was as many conspiracies regarding that. Like it was unfortunate and John Wilkes Booth killed him and yeah, but JFK, when you see what he had in mind, what he wanted to implement, and even his family as a whole, the amount of Kennedys that have been assassinated, or it's like it's not all a coincidence. This what this guy said, it was in writing, And now that people have finally opened up or opened their eyes to the control mainstream media, Israel, Mossad, whatever it is, has and in shaping these narratives, it's like if you had a president who was anti-Israel then when Israel was just conceived, it's not a conspiracy, right? It's like he would have completely impeded and hindered everything they had going, right? Because right after JFK, what happens in the 70s with the Iran Contra and Nixon and then moving forward to Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, yeah.
And
The Shah of Iran talks about that too. But yeah, please go. Please continue.
yeah, sorry, I know you said it go ahead, but I know I just keep going and going and going.
No, no,
So
it's
my
just something interesting I remember. That's why. But keep going.
yeah, it's just there's always it led to something and it's still affecting us today. And what's crazy is there was somebody who I had researched or when I was just on this deep dive around the time of JFK, thinking about there's so many figures in the 60s and 70s who were assassinated. That was a very transcendental period in America, not just American history, but global, like, just globally, world history. When you think about MLK, or Malcolm X, Huey P. Newton, all these, from Black Panthers or to whoever,
John
it's
Lennon and who else?
gone. Yeah, even pop culture figures, pop culture were way bigger revolutionaries than they weren't. They wouldn't fall or buy into the censorship. So much just changed in that time period that people are now being like, man, why are we so censored? Why are Americans so brainwashed? But you need to look deep into where that all began. It's there's a cause, there's a root cause, right? We do root cause analysis. It started there. It started with the censorship. We had these figures who were trying to sort of break I guess the what is it, dystopic, whatever view, and that would have been the shift. But because JFK was assassinated and the CIA, whoever got what they wanted, we're here now, right? Like butterfly effect. And sometimes I think about that. If these figures didn't die, how different everything would look, not just for us, but even Muslims worldwide and people
Yeah,
worldwide.
and I like how you're mentioning this because it's Michael Jackson. Would you say he was a victim of this? I know you're a big fan. I mean, me too, but I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your thoughts on this.
I would say yes. Um, Michael Jackson, this figure who was truly beyond larger than life. People throw that around a lot, but he definitely was before social media, before all of these things. It's like you needed to really go out of your way to learn about him, listen to his music, do whatever.
Some say
And
he was the closest to world peace in the recent times.
yeah, yeah, no, no, exactly. It's just like
Yeah.
they're like jokes or there's like some truth about Osama bin Laden having Michael Jackson's music downloaded on his computer. And I had like my nani, may Allah have mercy on her, she would talk to me about how big Michael Jackson is. And I feel like I couldn't ever, on a pop cultural sense, talking about figures or whatever, I could never talk to her about, I'm not gonna talk to her about the newest rapper or whatever. And it's just like, but Michael Jackson, like she would talk to me about that. And it felt like my grandparents are so in a different, not in a different reality. It makes sense. I'm not criticizing them for it, but that's just from a personal level to even this big level. It's like when I found out about how when he died and I was a kid and this obsession, I sort of was like obsessed as a kid.
Yeah, when I was that was the first big event I remember as a kid growing up. The death of Michael Jackson. Like it was
Yes.
always on the news for
In terms
like
of
weeks.
celebrity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yahoo, like seeing it on Yahoo and stuff like it was everywhere.
No, and the funny thing is, the only thing I would know about Michael Jackson is when I would hear before he died from older kids or whoever, they would just make jokes and memes about him being gay or a pedophile, right? And at
Mm.
that time, I didn't even really know what gay meant. I just thought the negative connotations, like, oh, it's bad, right? So
Mm. I didn't know that actually.
Yeah,
All I knew from him was Billie Jean. Like that was just always on my lips as a kid. It was
yeah,
that popular, you know?
yeah.
Billie Jean is not my lover.
Yeah, Billie Jean, Thriller, and that he was some creepy gay pedophile or whatever, like these terms that people will throw around. But he dies, and and as a kid, we're very impressionable. But I immediately deep dive into him, and I'm just like, man, this guy is awesome, and like what he represents. I remember his song, "They Don't Care About Us," right? At
That's a
the
wild song. That's a
Yeah,
good
and I
song.
know learning now about it, I can understand it more and do some deep dive. But back then, as a kid, even on a surface level, I was like, hey, like I get what he's saying. Like he's saying that people don't care about us or people don't like us. And it resonated with me. And he was like the one uber mainstream artist that would have these subliminal messages because on a surface level, a lot of big artists can talk about racism or but at the end of the day it's in a controlled setting. It's what their labels and who these songwriters or whatever will allow them to say. And when they talk about revolutionaries, like they say Kendrick Lamar is a revolutionary. I really like Kendrick Lamar, but I don't think he's a revolutionary.
I don't
I
think we've had a real revolutionary artistically for a while. I mean, maybe mini revolutions, but I
it
don't
never
think there's.
never to the scale of Michael Jackson. It's hard. It's just like, and again, I know we keep going into this conspiracy thing, but when you think about it, you have all these big figures, all these big celebrities like Oprah Winfrey. I know we've talked about this personally or privately, like Oprah Winfrey, John Legend, yada yada, who are these are like the corporate. These are like the final, Oprah is like the final boss of corporate identity and politics. She and what she represents, I'm not even kidding. When you talk about like neoliberalism or whatever, she is what all these white supremacists or whoever, she's perfect. She is the perfect pawn. She will she will act like she's forward and progressive and she's there for black people, minorities, whoever. But the reality is she just does the establishment's bidding. She
She's like
will
the lady from Suicide Squad. You press a button, the head blows off.
Yeah, 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 exactly. That's funny. Yeah, it's that's who she is. And when you have think about it, Michael Jackson, he meant so much to African Americans, to all these whoever, people of color, and he's larger than life. He was unifying. It was like all these racist people, whoever were so enthralled by the mystique of Michael Jackson, how talented he is, but this charisma and his messaging and everything that he was subjected to. The man was abused as a child, all these things. It's like, wow, like this guy has gone and endured all these things, and people saw themselves in him in certain ways, and everything's perfect. And then all of a sudden, right, you get into the 90s, you get into all this Michael Jackson Neverland controversy, and you
And
just
this is after his death too, right? Or actually, some of this took place during his life.
Oh
But
no, no, this is like I think that's why he went AWOL, and I'm sorry
yeah, that's right. That is right.
he did go off grid for a long time because and you think about how can someone that big go off grid, but he managed to do it because it just I think there was like the whole FBI case, there was all these things out of nowhere. How can this dude it's like Michael Jackson. Oh, he did a good job of unifying and stuff, but they're like the whoever the establishment. They're like, okay, okay, calm down. You've done a good job. You did your part. Like, don't like go beyond what we want. Like, stop like throwing these messages. Stop saying yada yada. Like, we don't need that. We don't need that much forward progress. Like Michael Jackson.
We don't need you to potentially convert to Islam, man. That was another thing, right?
Yeah, it's always like, man, so and so is considering Islam too. Oh my God, like he's horrible. He's a pedophile. He's an Islamist. He's this. He's every evil thing imaginable. Who do we call? Oprah. Oprah, we need you. We know people listen to you. We know white people love you. We know black people love you. Say he's a pedophile. Say he's this. Oprah comes out, Oprah says these things, and it's not just Oprah. And my thing is, it's like you think about the Harvey Weinsteins, you think there's been a lot of problematic celebrities, and it's like news outlets will report on them here and there, but you don't really see celebrities coming out and saying like this guy's bad, even with definitive evidence. But with Michael Jackson, it was like, oh, see, he was seen like hanging out with a kid or whatever it is, and that's all we need. And all these celebrities jump on him, and it just felt so manufactured, and that's kind of why I'm so big on this subject, and I'm so passionate about it because
He was a
it's
legend.
yeah, he's a legend and he stood for so much, and you see this guy just get completely trashed, and with everything he dealt with and all that global media pressure, it's very easy to cave. I think we've talked about BoozyTube and like these niche micro celebs who cannot deal with pressure and whatever it is. But for him, it's on an unimaginable level. But I think
Dude,
he's
he was bigger than Elvis. I mean, that's
yeah,
crazy. You know
he
what I
kept
mean?
his head above water, and for that reason, they simply couldn't have it, and that's what makes me sad. That's how I sort of see it. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, well, when you're at the top, it seems like it's bound to happen. People will want to tear you down. Um, I watched most of that documentary, Finding Neverland. It was haunting, and I wasn't sure what to believe. But the thing that really changed my mind was after having a conversation with you about it, and also Aaron Carter, the rapper who died. And I,
Yeah,
I can't confirm this, but I don't know, might have been a strange death. I don't know. But he said Michael never did anything. And I
yeah.
just didn't understand why they wanted me to say that Michael did things. And when he said that, for some reason, there's just like such a realness on his face and just in his voice. And it just, I don't know the facts of everything, but that seems pretty true to me.
Oh yeah, and think about it, Aaron Carter, I know he was in such a vulnerable state. He had a drug addiction. He had all of these things. He was a global pop or child superstar. He had everything he wanted. And then unfortunately, he the latter part of his life is just ridden with drug abuse and losing everything he worked for. So you think when he's put in this position, I'm sure he was bribed. I'm sure people were like, come on, man, all you need is just, we need you to just admit it, and we can completely just throw the book at Michael Jackson, and that'll be that. And like they're, kind of manipulating, they're banking on this guy's vulnerability. Like, oh, he's going to cave, man. Imagine it's a very human thing, right? You've lost everything. Why wouldn't I just buy into it? They'll probably give him a lump sum of a few $1 million, maybe even push him out again. Oh, Aaron Carter is pursuing music again and yada yada. I'm sure. And this guy at such a low was still like not able to break into something like that. And he was like, no, like Michael Jackson never came close to doing those things. And I think that spoke volumes. Same with what is it, Macaulay Culkin and all these vulnerable child stars who went down the cliche pipeline of losing everything. It's so easy to, because think about it, you have Michael Jackson, the biggest superstar, and then you have these child stars who just, it's so easy. I can immediately just say Michael Jackson did yada yada. Everyone's gonna empathize. Everyone's gonna start streaming my music. But no, they they saw nothing for it, and I think that's the biggest thing. It's like they tried so hard. I think it's easy to frame someone at that level, yet they couldn't. And I think that's what kind of really. And now when you see people like Diddy and Jay-Z, these dudes who have been Drake, who are, revered and everyone loves them, and now it's sort of sorting like to tip down. And these guys were so good at covering their tracks, yet ultimately the truth comes to light. And now they're all kind of getting scrutinized, deservedly so, and things are being revealed. that even like the mainstream media, who they are in bed with, in cahoots with, can't hide and deny. And I think that's sort of what helped, that kind of makes vindicates the whole Michael Jackson saga to me. But yeah.
Yeah. And I think the haunting thing about it is, these people they can't get that peace after death. People will always, like, even after you and me, people will always talk one way and the other. It's always going to be a debate. It will continue going on. And yeah. But I will say one person I think that has recently been on my mind that's really fascinated me is Shah Rukh Khan. I mean, he has quite literally had such a long trajectory, and it's been great. And I was watching like a mini documentary about how it kind of went down for a little bit because everybody wanted to tear him down, but then he disappeared. He went AWOL for a little bit,
Oh,
and when he
really?
returned, boom, like back on top. Wild, wild.
Really?
It's
I didn't know that.
impressive.
I didn't know
Yeah.
he had this. What was it? If you can give me some context, I didn't know about that.
Well, I mean, just this idea that he's always been the king of Bollywood. And
Yeah.
then there were a few, I think it was like 2, 3 years or something like that, where he made a couple films that flopped, and people wanted them to flop. Like they wanted to tear him down in that industry. And then he felt like, he was betrayed and attacked wrongly, whatever. He disappears for a little bit. And when he comes back, he's releasing hit after hit. And I just think that's impressive because it's like it's an example of someone who endures the betrayal of false friends and then kind of like comes
Yeah.
back to the top.
Yeah.
It's like, what is it? Success is the best revenge. He just did
Yeah.
it. He came back.
Dude, you
Oh,
know what's so crazy? And because you're tying it into what we were speaking about earlier, I've heard that Shah Rukh Khan, um, he when he first like was trying to break into acting, it was hard. Maybe they touch on this documentary. I've never seen it, but he was seen as not attractive. He wasn't seen, apparently people saw him as ugly, and he didn't fit the mold that like an Amitabh Bachchan or whoever meant. Like, oh, he doesn't have that. But now, like years later, after he blew up, it's just like everyone sees him as so attractive, so this, so that, and it's crazy that we think the world could have looked, because he's probably the biggest Bollywood actor ever, arguably. And uh
maybe not even arguably.
yeah, I don't know if
There's this
it's
interesting thing he said in an interview. He said, "I'm the last of the stars," and he just said it with just such a nonchalant confidence.
weird.
Like, I'm the last of the. I was like, damn,
That's kind of
wild,
badass. He's not wrong.
wild.
It's hard. I mean, you see that. My bad. I'm not gonna try to go in devoid from the subject, but yeah. I don't know. It's just I was thinking about that. You're just saying Shah Rukh Khan and how this man really changed the narrative, and now he's seen as such an amazing, awesome dude. But we almost lost out on him because he wasn't seen as attractive, and that was that. And you can see like these nepo kids or whoever that are super uber attractive, but they don't have the skill set or whatever, but they're still manufactured and pushed out. And it's crazy. You see it on all levels, this whole pretty privilege halo effect thing. But yeah, no,
Yeah. No,
shout
thanks
out.
for. Yeah, no. Shout out to Shah Rukh Khan for sure. But thanks for saying that because something I wanted to mention earlier was I read a poem about an ugly person. Somebody who called themselves ugly wrote this poem, and they shared their experience. And they were basically, actually, it might not have been a poem. I don't remember what it was, but an ugly person was saying this, and they're like, you know what? I'm happy that I'm ugly because at least I know that everyone in my life that's in it, that's with me, is real. Because if I was really beautiful, I probably would have had fake friends. But another thing is that you talked about, these nepos that might be super attractive, but they just don't have it. Something I read, and of course, it's not true across the board, but it's that sometimes really attractive people don't develop their personalities as much because of pretty privilege. things just kind of come their way, and so that personality development kind of
Oh,
atrophies. And of course, that's not true across the board, but that is a thing. So
dude,
I like how you mentioned that there. They just don't
no,
have it. They just don't have it.
that's a that's crazy, bro. That's such a good quote or point. I've never thought about that. It really does because you have this one redeeming quality, or you might be, I don't know, whatever it is, and that's all it takes. You formulate your whole personality around that, and that's it. People are always gonna flock to me because of so and so. And if I don't know. I've seen people like even people who live in who are still living in this high school sort of vacuum, and because I was such and
A lot of
such,
those, right?
yeah, yeah, I was a star in high school, or I was this larger than life figure because I was good at a sport, or I played basketball or whatever, and they try to keep this image beyond high school. And then if something happens, they get injured or they lose something, and they fall into this like depression or whatever because it's like, man, that was it. That's why people love me, right? That's why this happened, and I've lost that, and they can't really speak on anything else, and they'll project, and they'll get jealous of other friends or other people, and they'll try to say like, oh, so and so was only this because of me, or they latched on, and I've experienced it. I've seen it. That's such a good point. They really they're the entire rest of their because the thing is, it's like I was never drawn to this person because they were so good at so and so, or because they met this. Ultimately, I gelled with them because I connected with them on this, and that, more nuance, more this, but because they only saw themselves in that box of attractiveness or whatever, that's all they fixated on. And it kind of evolves into the narcissism and all these other things. And they never truly learn how to emotionally regulate things or because they get everything they want. Dude, that's crazy. Like, I don't know. I'm sorry. You made me think now.
No, you're right, man. It is wild, and
Uh,
yeah. I mean, I wish the best to those people. You know, everybody, doesn't matter who you are. Like, I feel like it's a responsibility as a human being to just develop your personality. We're always changing, and we got to adapt to it. One thing I wanted to say to anybody young listening to this is that I remember when I was in K to 12, I thought that was reality. I thought that was my world. I thought that was real life, right? High school, especially, right? Like, oh, this is how things are. This is probably how they are in real life, too. Then you graduate and then you go to college and you realize, wait, like all that K to 12, that's not the real world. It's different. Things are different. People are different. Then you go to
absolutely.
college, and for me, it's like, okay, so this must be reality. This is probably the real world. And then I graduate college and I realize, no, that wasn't it either. That was its own little, micro ecosystem. And now we're in the real world, you and me, and there's a lot to explore. It's a lot to learn. So my message to the young ones listening to this is, if it doesn't feel right now, if it doesn't feel good right now, well, a lot to look forward to. But Fawaz, I really had fun. This was a good conversation, man. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you felt like you wanted to say, didn't get a chance to? Something on your mind that you wanted to express?
Dude, I'm sorry again, like if I didn't give you the chance to speak or whatever. I know I go on
It was
these.
fine. I loved what you were saying.
Thank
So
you.
no need to
I,
apologize.
I appreciate it. It's nice. You give this outlet to people to really kind of, I wouldn't say vent, but whatever it is, speak on something that might be clouding them or whatever it is. And it's a very underappreciated thing that you're doing, dude. Like really, thank you for all that you've done and how consistent you've been and the effort you put into this. I really admire and respect that. And shoot,
Thank
I
you.
forgot. I know we wanted to like talk about, or I texted you about the whole like Hitman thing and the God of War, Christopher Judge. There's so many.
dude, no, 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 we can't talk about God of War Ragnarok. I haven't played it yet, and I have shielded myself from it.
You haven't?
When I play the game, when I finish it, we will talk again about that. But yeah, I
Those
did
are
meet Christopher Judge. That was really cool. And then, of course, David Bateson, Asian 47 was on the podcast. That was awesome as well.
it. That's a testament to the work you've put in, and I'm really proud of you, man. Mashallah, and may Allah keep that success going. And as for closing remarks, besides from that, to anyone who listens, I hope you can end this year on a good note, inshallah, God willing. And I just want to tell people to like never ever lose hope, no matter how cliche this might sound. It's been a very tough and learning year for me, and I know like with other people that I've seen, but there really is a lot out there for us. And you said the K to 12 thing exactly to young ones, whoever, like life does not end there. You have so much life to live. There's so much that we need to learn and unlearn, and keep an open mind, and really just listen to people, listen to whoever, always be open for a conversation and hearing someone out, because you don't know how much that can make their day, their week, or even their year. So I think that's something that I'd want to say. It's nice to talk to people. It really is. And also to feel heard. I think that's something I struggle with. So I feel like I'm never really listened to or heard. So thank you again, Omar, for that. And to everybody else, that's what I want to say.
No, for sure. Yeah, that's beautiful, man, honestly. And I always have fun talking to you, honestly, In person, like it's always a good time. You always have something beautiful to say. It's
Um,
insightful, and it's cool how the conversation always moves with time. So
no,
thank you again
absolutely.
for being here. Yeah.
Of course. Thank you.
I suppose until next time, eh? Inshallah.
Till next time, inshallah. Can't wait to do part 3 whenever.
Yes, sir. Inshallah.